Welcome, everybody, to Why Are You an Entrepreneur? I'm Maureen Edwards with 8 Simple Steps. And if you notice, we've changed the format just slightly. And it's really just, we're not doing this 4 times a month. We are doing it once a month on the second Thursday of every month. So you got to bookmark it, mark your calendar. We would love to see you here. So for those of you tuning in for the first time, you know that this is where I bring you rock star entrepreneurs who are moving, shaking, making things happen, and are so generous with their time to not only share their entrepreneurial journey, but also give you some tips, tricks, best practices, words of wisdom, and inspiration. Because at the end of the day, being an entrepreneur and running a business is very, very hard. But I want you to know you have a community behind you. So tonight, not any exception at all, I have the amazing Debbie Saviano. She is the founder of Debbie Saviano LLC. And I'm super intrigued because that's kind of vague. So I'd like to know, we're going to dive into what she really does and who she serves. But before we do that, I want to welcome you, Debbie.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. I cannot tell you how many people just rave about you. And I'm like, I just have to have her on my show.
You're so sweet.
That's it. So I ask the first question always, because that's what this is about. Why are you an entrepreneur?
Well, my first career was education. I was a school principal and I retired. And I always tell people you can retire young in education. Okay. So I was like, 50. And so left education and crazy enough, I thought I want to be an entrepreneur, which is strange because my whole world, but previous to that had been in education, but I want to be an entrepreneur. Had no clue what I was supposed to do or how to do it. So I thought, okay, I've got to start learning. My whole world's learning education. So I started taking every webinar, every training, hired a coach. For 2.5 years, I totally devoted myself to learning about social media. And think about this was like, 12 years ago, things were just kind of really starting to hit and everything. So I was doing things and this guy, I love this story because it's just so cool. This guy reached out to me on LinkedIn and he said, can you do for me what you've done for you? And I went, oh my gosh. Because see, my profile was done differently, how I spaced things, how I worded things. Because see, I know how people read. I know how to keep people on a page because we taught reading in school, right? That's what education does. So I started doing that. And I thought, this is what I'm supposed to be doing is LinkedIn because it's a professional platform. It's educational, et cetera. And so that's how it started. Literally. It kind of was almost a God thing. He kind of said, okay, this is what you should be doing. And I do all the platforms, but LinkedIn's my baby because it's a professional platform. So that's how.
And I love how you focus in on one thing. A lot of people will be kind of all over the place with their business and they haven't really targeted in.
Right.
So I guess my big question is jumping in from education, which is pretty structured, you know what to expect. You're, really specialized in that. Entrepreneurship, like what was hard about that once you got into it? What was like the hardest thing that you were like, what did I do?
That's a really good question. Wow. Yes. I think that the easiest thing was I didn't have to ask anybody for advice I didn't have to get approval. If I want to do it, I could do it, which I love that part. The hard part was you're by yourself. And so all of a sudden, and I say this again, I always try to share this because I think it's so important, especially for people who might be new going into it. The people around you, they're closest to you, I have found are the least supportive of you. Because see, they like the way they like that life you had before. And so that's the first part. You have to help those people understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what the plans are. Because if you don't, you're not going to have support from your base of close family and friends. So that was the very first thing I had to do. But getting a network, staying with that, doing the training. Tiger Woods, any of those really big people, they have coaches. And I paid a coach. I've had a coach, forever. Different people in my sphere of learning because I always wanted to elevate myself and to do better. So understanding you have to invest in yourself. You can't just go out there and wing it. We didn't stay at Holiday Inn, right? Love that commercial. But anyway, so the hardest part is knowing you're by yourself and what do you have to do to survive and how do you balance that with everything else in your world. And even in education, I was never a, not 8 to 5 kind of person anyway, but it's a 24/7 these days. You take off if you want to take off, but you also work when some other people might not be working. But I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. So it's a different world. Totally.
Yeah. You said something really important here, because I experienced this too, is that the ones closest to you are not necessarily the ones most supportive. And I think that's because they don't know what they don't know. So you can't really blame them. And it's not, they may not have that entrepreneurial mindset. So finding out more is like, whatever. And so you do have to find a community of people who are, in your same situation. And this is one of the reasons why I do this show, is I bring people like you who can kind of share, and you've walked this journey. And the other thing that, everybody out here, here's a piece of wisdom. Debbie just shared that you need to get a coach. Okay. Especially you coaches out there. Coaches need coaches.
Right.
And if you are not, you're doing a disservice, not only to yourself, but the people you serve. So I love the fact that you recognized that. And so when you actually got started, what did you find was kind of your strength? You said it was in writing, and I'd like to know how you took that strength and really capitalized on it and got your message out there.
So coming from education, knowing how you teach, we call it backward design in education. You build a lesson plan out. You want a child, well, just say reading because it's a simple example. You want a child to learn to read. So then you back it up. And what all do you have to do to get to that end conclusion of reading? So when I started doing my profile and everything, I thought no one's reading these 10 paragraphs, no spaces, they're not reading these things. I'm not reading them. And so that was the first thing I did. Was I did, the F pattern or the spacing. I use icons, I use caps. I didn't, again, which is interesting coming from education, grammatically correct, yes. But I wanted to be like I spoke. I wanted it to be like I would be talking to someone. I always, used, you, because they're reading my profile. It wasn't about me. I never use I. I use the icons. I use different spacing things. And I use the example of Western Telegram, which I've never gotten one, but it's a good example. They have words that it says stop. They have words that says stop. Well, that's the same thing we need to do in our writing on our profiles, because our brain's not going to take all that in. So if you look at my headline and see what happened, then other people started doing those things, not just because of me, but because they were seeing how people respond to things. My headline, you have to have a space. You have to have a break. You have to have something to where the mind knows you're on a different thought process. And a lot of people don't. And I think that it gets lost in the jumble, if you will. So those are the things that I do, that I still do today. And I have most of the people I learned from when I first started were guys, which is interesting. But Chris Brogan is a friend today. I learned so much from him. David Simon Garland, all these people I learned from. And one day, someone reached out to me and said, "What is the deal with all?" Of course, he had a couple words there, because most of these guys were extremely young. I mean, they could have been my kids, maybe not grandkids. And he said, "What is with the caps?" And I said, "I got your attention, though, didn't I?" And he goes, "Boom, you did. You're right." So and again, I don't mean like all capped words, but you have to have some things in there to capture the brain's attention, because we're, especially nowadays, oh my gosh, we're so multitasking and we're so busy. So yeah, those are some things I did and still do, still counsel.
I love it. We have the attention span of a gnat today, exactly. Is what I say.
Absolutely.
And so you have to have something compelling that comes in. And I always say the 5 C's: clear, concise, consistent, compelling, and customer centric. And so I love what you're saying. So in your opinion, you've worked with a lot of people. You've probably met a lot of business owners. All right. In your opinion, what do they struggle most with?
Depending upon the client, depending on the area, the industry, et cetera. But I think one thing, if I had to say a couple of things, one is self-confidence, because we see all the filtered things and all the wonderful things out there. Everything's perfect. Well, it's not. And I think they worry sometimes about that. And I think women struggle with that more than men do, unfortunately. Yeah. But I think women, am I good enough kind of thing? And so I think that's one thing. The other thing is, sometimes they're afraid to ask what they don't know. And I ask stuff every day. I say every day I don't know something. I try to learn something. But they don't want to appear dumb, which is a terrible word to use. They don't want to appear less than somebody else. And so with social media today, and COVID taught us that, how many restaurants went out of business because they failed to see the power of digital? They didn't have an online website. They didn't have links. They didn't have anywhere you could connect with them. and all of a sudden they're out of business. So you can't wait to do social media. And I know I'm, such an advocate for that, but that's our world today. You have to do it. You can't totally rely on it. You got to have that foundation of your list and everything else you do, but you have to be out there. And so people worry about that sometimes. I think getting out there and what they don't know. They don't want their kids or their colleagues to look at and say, well, you don't know how to do anything, especially with social media.
So let's talk about social media for a second, because I do find that people struggle with this. Okay. And I think the older you get, it's not as intuitive, of course, as the people who grew up with an iPad in their crib. I mean, let's call it what it is. And so I have to say and we don't want to talk about age here, because it's not about age, but your generation is the generation that struggles the most. So I find so impressive. In fact, I have not met anybody like you at your age who actually focuses in on teaching social media. And I think this is a huge advantage for people out there who may feel like I'm past the point. I am, tech is not my forte. I am not going to do it. And I just think you are an incredible inspiration that you can learn anything regardless of your age, right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And that's so true. And of course, coming from education, right? I'm always about lifelong learner, because you can always learn, but you can't not learn, because if you do, you'll get left behind. And especially now with tech, it goes so fast. And people, so many people say, oh, it's a passing fad, or this isn't going to happen, or whatever. It's here to stay, and it's only going to get faster. So I try really hard to teach as much as I can, because I know what a challenge that is. And I want people to have the advantage of that. It's not easy doing it. I was speaking one time, huge audience. CEO introduced me. I'm coming up the podium. He's walking off, and he leans down. He says, you're here because of your age, right? I said, I know, isn't it great? I have an advantage because of my age. I've said I'm not going to mess up someone's social, because that one thing can destroy a career or a business or whatever. So my age is to my advantage. And so I want to model that for other people, that it doesn't matter what age you are, just keep learning and growing. Now, there is one thing that, again, I focus on LinkedIn. I do all the platforms, but I focus on LinkedIn. But I always have, you talk about your words of wisdom. Anytime a new platform comes out, I don't care what it is, I go in and I get my name. I may never go back there, but I want to own my name on every platform. I just did one. I do a Tuesday tip every week. I'm doing on next Tuesday. I'm doing this one to show what I'm talking about. But you have to, because you don't want to lose your name. I have Debbie Saviano on everything. There's almost not many, but there are some. But if you don't know your name, someone else is going to. So a new platform comes out, go get your handle, get your name, register. You may never use it, but you might use it because you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So, yeah.
That is awesome advice. That is basically protecting your brand. And people who know me, I'm all about brand. That's how you start a business before you start marketing, because you want that brand recognition. So that is fabulous advice. So what do you think, we look at social media and it is very daunting. It is very intimidating for some. What would be the first piece of advice you would say to somebody to just get the first step? What would that first step be?
So the first step would be, what do you want to have happen? Do you just want to build relationships? Do you want to increase your connections? What do you want? Everything I do is about relationships. Anyone who knows me knows that. It's all about the personal. Again, that's my background with working with students, right? You want to build a relationship. So the first step is take a baby step. Get the platform. Go in there and put as much information as you can. And then start identifying, who do you want to talk to? Who do you want to be your ideal client? If you already know it, that's great. But just like me with LinkedIn, I didn't plan to do LinkedIn. LinkedIn kind of found me. And so set up the account and just start with one. Don't try to do everything. Get the handle on all of them, but don't try to do all of them. And then just start, for lack of playing, and start following people who do what you want to do. Okay? Learn from those people. As you and I both said, the coaches, if you will. All the people I learned from. I would not be where I am and do what I do if I had not done the training and had all the coaching I've had. I wouldn't have had it. So, yeah.
And I'll add one more thing, because people know that I'm crazy about implementation. You could have gotten all the knowledge in the world. You could have taken every workshop. And then if you didn't implement it and move your business forward, then it was all for nothing.
That's right.
So I love LinkedIn. It is my first choice, but I have found in my travels that it is one of the least used by a lot of business owners who gravitate towards Facebook. And I say to people, not everybody should be on Facebook. Let's call it what it is, right? So in your opinion, why is it that people overlook LinkedIn?
Great question, Maureen. I think that because Facebook was our first love, I mean, let's face it, that was our first platform we went on. And so we had a comfort zone there. It was a little bit more personal, so therefore it was easier to do. The challenge, and again, all the other platforms, Instagram, which I love, Pinterest, I love. You have all those platforms, but people can just be there by chance. LinkedIn is intentional. People do not go to LinkedIn just to say, oh, I wonder what Susie's doing, like they do Facebook. There's not as much trolling, if you will, of just.
Oh, great. Yes.
And so I think that's the advantage. I do think I mean, they just hit a billion followers, right? But I think that they finally, people during COVID, realized LinkedIn was the one to be. The other thing too is when you're on Facebook or the other platforms subliminally, again, education background, people know it's social. They don't think it's business. You might tell them that, you might want to believe that, but it's not. The test is look at your personal profile and look at a business profile on Facebook. Where do you get the attention? You get it on a personal, not on a business. Because people know it's a business. When they know it's a business, they start backing up. Human nature. So I think it's a psychological thing with Facebook. And plus, it was just the first. It was easy for us. We knew it.
Right.
And we were able to learn it as we went. LinkedIn, it took a little bit more effort because it was later. And a lot of people didn't want to, necessarily address that. So,
and I say to people, LinkedIn converts 277% better than Facebook and what was Twitter and now X. And so I try and get that word out. And I find the platform to be pretty easy to work compared to some of the others can be a little bit tricky. Okay, so let's get back to your journey into this whole endeavor of entrepreneurship. What do you love most about it?
I love the fact, this kind of stuff gives me chills. I love the fact that there are no borders, there's no boundaries, there's no limitation. The only limitation is my former partner, Stacy Sheff and Linda McMahon. Stacy used to say, kitten, you should trademark charged and connected, because that's what I say. If you're charged and you're connected, you can connect around the globe. Literally, doesn't matter who or where. Economics don't matter. Profession doesn't matter. It's all about the personal. If you're willing, even with LinkedIn, for me, it's about the relationship. And I've got people from all spectrums, if you will, on their political beliefs, their religious beliefs, etc. But because we all are humans, so for me, it's being able to connect on a global scale with people you might not be able to connect with. And knowing that when you do meet people in professional environments and everything, that's another place you can extend that conversation, either before something's going to happen, like an event or something, during and after. It's just a perfect playground for that. So.
What has been your greatest success as an entrepreneur?
Wow. The greatest success, I probably would say, you're giving me some really good ones here. I hope everybody knows none of this is scripted. We're just talking. The conversation.
No, I don't do any prep. I tell people I don't want to, unless I do have, people I know who come on here, but I want us to be meeting for the first time. Right. And so I don't want to throw you, but these are questions I think are important. Yeah. Like what sticks in your mind that was just this like, wow moment?
It kind of goes back to, I left education, got the train, started doing social media. I was speaking in Philadelphia. Stacy Shefflin was there, who I did not know, and she heard me speak. Afterwards, she comes up, introduces herself. Stacy was on HSN, QVC. She's got all these TV stations around TV around the world. So she came up. Long story short, she hired me. She had me on a show a couple times. We decided to do Women's Leadership Live, a business. She says, hey, I've got a friend. Let's run the thing back past her and see what she thinks about it. That person was Linda McMahon. The three of us became partners. The rest is kind of history. That would never have happened because I mean, Stacy at the time, was living in Connecticut, but she was in Florida. I'm in Texas, Linda's in Connecticut. I would never have met Stacy, first of all. I would never have met Linda. And to this day, we're dear, dear friends. And we've had amazing opportunities. None of that would have happened had it not been for digital space. And again, depending upon your belief system, I believe God puts that there for a reason. We just have to open up the door and the windows and walk inside and take advantage of that. There's so many people in this world to meet. And really, there's, I give this credit to Chris Brogan. There are no gatekeepers anymore. With technology, you can get to the person you want to get to 99% of the time. You just have to put the effort through, to your point. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I am in a total agreement with you. It used to be we needed an agent, a publicist to start a magazine,
Right.
An agent to get into an article, and we don't have to do that. We have an open access, to that. And you said something that kind of sparked my interest, and now I was like, I should have. Oh, okay. This is what it is, because this is an important one. Of course, I should have remembered it, right? You went into a partnership, okay? And partnerships for entrepreneurs can be a little bit tricky. And so I'd like to know, what were some of the benefits of having a partnership? Do you still have it? And how was, if not, the transition out of it?
That's a great question, because you're right. Sometimes it can be very difficult, right? The benefit for me, the biggest benefit, first of all, be the friendship. But secondly, from the business perspective, it would be the knowledge, the business acumen. Linda's built, billion-dollar companies. Stacy's had a digital world, literally with, I think she had 15 channels around the world. That expertise and that level, I never would have gotten. There's so many things I've learned from Linda and Stacy that I wouldn't have had. And so that would be the first one. And then what was the second part of it? Was it two parts?
Working together.
Okay.
Do you still have this partnership?
Yeah, we still have it. It's kind of on hiatus because Linda's went to the White House, and then she and Stacey are doing things with America First Policy Institute, and I'm doing the social media, the speaking. But we still do things together. We're still dear friends. We see each other probably once a month, and we chat and talk constantly. So we didn't really actually leave it. We just kind of put it on hiatus to see where we want to go forward with it. So it's always still there, and we kind of have that foundation if we want to go back to it. But you do have to be careful, because again, that's an example. Linda's done these billion-dollar companies, as says Stacy. So contracts and agreements and full understanding, communication, knowing what you're getting into. It's going to be this, and this. You have to have that. And if you don't have that, you're going to have some problems later on, right? So having that business acumen is critical. I'm a huge advocate for collaboration, huge. There's so many people who I've done things with and that I will do things in the future with. And I think that's one of the things that we should take advantage of, because digital lets us that. I do a lot with Margaret Tantal out in Washington, Vashon Island. And she and I do things together. Judy Hoberman, who introduced us. There's so many people out there, that Debbie Isaac, that we're able to do things with that we wouldn't have known and have advantage to if it wasn't for this. But you do have to know what you're getting into, and you have to know the personality, and you have to know what the limitations are, and you have to complement each other. That's what I bring to Linda and Stacy's the digital aspect of it. Even with Stacy being on TV, she was selling a product, or is selling a product, that they can't touch or feel or smell. So that's one thing, but then I'm on the digital space. So yeah, I think collaboration is a huge opportunity. A lot of times people don't take advantage of it, but they should, especially nowadays.
Awesome advice. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to ask you a question. We obviously know that the digital social media space is your absolute favorite vehicle to market, to get brand awareness, to collaborate. But are there other marketing tactics people can do out there that you feel like maybe even in traditional marketing that would be beneficial? Are there, other digital campaigns that you would recommend out there?
I keep saying this, Maureen, great question, because you're making me think about some things I hadn't thought about. One thing that kind of skirts both of those lanes, if you will, I'm a huge advocate for Dallas Business Journal, or Business Journal, wherever it is that you live. I get the paper copy every 2 weeks or whatever it is every week. I go through that to look for what's happening in the DFW area. So let's say I see something that's happening, and I've done this. Okay, I might cut the picture out. I might make a note on it, say something back, congratulations. I then send them a thank you note, or I send them a congratulations note, and just say, hey, it's nothing for me. Just, hey, great job, saw you in there. Because sometimes people don't know how much people do see that. I look up, see if I can find something about. I've had people hire me because of that. I never would have had that connection. So just taking the time to write a simple note, which most people don't get anymore. Make sure the stationery is within the brand, to your point, and make sure I say something about what they've done and the benefit to the community for that. So that's one thing. The other thing, and I just did this last week on this week on Tuesday Tip, we have to continue to think outside the box. And I know that's such an old statement. I mean, it's so tiring to say that, but we have to think, what can we do that we didn't do before that's so outlandish? I mean, when it goes, you want to work for a company, what can you do for the company that's going to get them to know you that they might not have known otherwise? The lady who sent the cake to the party because he wanted them to know who she was. David Simon Garland, when I first, he did a lot of training with me. He was having an open house in St. Louis. I couldn't go, never met the kid. And he was a kid. I sent him a bottle of wine because I knew from being online with him that he had been on this big fasting from his wine, but he loved wine. I called up the restaurant, talked to the concierge, got the bottle of wine, ordered. He would still remember that today because I took the time to do that. Now that takes a little bit more time and effort and money, but not that much. Depends on who it is you're wanting. There's so many things you can do that people have using AI, using digital, using, just collaborating with other people and brainstorming. What could we do?
Well, what you just mentioned was competitive differentiation. How are you going to stand out from the pack?
Right.
And a simple thank you note goes a long way, and nobody does it anymore. We all just rely on, I'll just text them or I'll social media post. Thank you. So great advice. So we're almost coming to a close, but there are a couple things that I want to make sure we get out there. First off, I would like for you to share with everybody how they can contact you if they would like to work with you, especially on the whole LinkedIn. In fact, I've picked up so many things. I think I'm going to go scrap my whole LinkedIn and start over. Thank you very much for adding more work to my plate, Debbie. But great advice. So tell everybody out there who you serve.
So
and how to get an interview.
Basically, the best way to get, again, let me back up just for a second. So when I first started, I put in the contact information, I put my cell number. If I could tell you the number of people who told me that was a mistake, don't do that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know what? I control this. If I want to answer it, I'll answer it. If you're not on my phone, you're not going to come up. I'll let the message, I'll call you back. Okay. I have gotten so many jobs over the years from people who call me. Because see, people, when they're looking for something, they want to connect. Email, cell number, something. So I did that. And I still have my cell phone. Well, you notice now almost everybody has a phone on there. I've always had mine on there. So Debbie Saviano on LinkedIn. Debbie Saviano on LinkedIn. That's what I call my anchor is LinkedIn. I got a website. It's piddly. I'm not concerned about it. I want people to find me on LinkedIn, and then we can go from there. So LinkedIn is what I would encourage people to do. It's interesting with me. I have in some areas, whether I'm doing work for them or with them or training them, it just kind of depends. I have a lot of men. As a matter of fact, my primary clients when I first started were men. And again, across the globe who want a LinkedIn profile. Because at the time, those are the ones doing it most. And I'm stereotyping. Now I have a lot of women that I work with.
Right.
So I have a good balance. I really do. I have a good balance of both. And so connect on LinkedIn and then we can take the conversation. That's why I have Let's Talk on my thing, because let's talk.
Awesome. All right. So people have wanted to know, you offered 4 truths and a lie. And people had asked me on social media, what's the fib? What's the fib? And I'm like, you've got to tune in for what's the fib. So can you run down the 4 truths and a lie? So which go ahead and throw them all out. And then we're going to just start.
So first of all, let me say, Maureen, genius on your part, because a lot of people would have started with that. But you're so wise to keep that at the end, right? Because if it'd been me, I would just, because a lot of people asked me who didn't know. So let me read them first. Debbie started riding horses at a young age. Debbie knows one of the 3 men who own the Helium rights on the moon. Debbie has 2 children. Her son was a Navy SEAL for 10 years. Debbie has met The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and has photos to prove it. Debbie has spoken about LinkedIn in 7 countries. And, ta-da, I need a drum roll, don't I? The drum roll. I didn't start writing this at a young age.
Oh, I was going to tell you which one I thought, and you beat
Which one did you think it was? What did you think it was?
I thought it was you hadn't met The Rock with
I've met
photos to prove it.
I got photos.
But you have.
Thanks to Linda. Yeah. Met him. Yes. Amazing. I got amazing photographs of us with him. And I told, when we first met, we were talking about stuff. And so, oh my gosh, Linda, I would love to meet The Rock. And she goes, well, I don't know. That's a pretty big one, even though he started with them. And it was a WrestleMania in Dallas a few years back. And we go downstairs underneath, and the security people are saying he's not going to see anybody, blah, blah, blah. And she says, I got to go in here. I'll be right back. And so we're standing here talking, me and Stacy and David, Phil and I were talking with security people. And I see this person pick her up above his head, literally. And I went, oh my gosh. So anyway, long story short, she brings him out and she says, this one might faint. She's so excited to see you. And in true fashion, he says, I've got you, honey, if you do. I mean, the man is the sweetest, kindest person, so gentle. The only person he saw that was her and us because of her. So, yeah, I have pictures to prove The Rock. Great pictures.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Debbie, you are a delight. I have enjoyed our conversation tremendously.
Likewise.
In fact, I could continue talking with you. And like I said, now I'm ready to run and take all of this information, and great advice for me. I mean, I hope everybody out there has been really taking notes, and absolutely watch the replay, because Debbie has given you some really golden nuggets, some true words of wisdom. And I think that, what you shared about social media and LinkedIn, and I hope people out there feel a little bit more comfortable to jump out of their comfort zone with what you had to say. So I hope you will come back.
Well, please, I'd love to. And thank you so much for the opportunity. I will say every Tuesday, 99.9% of the time, I do a Tuesday tip. And it's always something that you can do. It's probably 70, 80% LinkedIn. And then if there's other things that come up, like next Tuesday, I'm going to talk about the new platform that's out and why you should just get your name. But if people connect with me on LinkedIn, then they can see that Tuesday tip every week. So it's a pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. I so enjoyed it.
Thank you. And for everybody tuning in tonight, thank you for doing that. If you would like to be a guest on Why Are You an Entrepreneur, please reach out to me. You can go to my website, 8simplesteps.net, or you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Just send me a quick DM. I will tell you, we went to that once a month format, which means I only have 4 spots left for 2024. So you better get in quick. So regardless of where you are in your business journey, I want to have a conversation with you, because I have people who need to hear it. So thank you, everybody. And one last thing, if you find yourself doing a lot of marketing and you're still not getting results, you're still not acquiring customers, you don't have a marketing problem, you got a messaging problem, most likely to an audience that's not resonating with. Okay, so let's chat. Let's talk about where you're at. It's actually an easier process to fix than you think. See everybody next month with another rock star. I will have Misha Mebane, who is one of the top mindset coaches out there. So there's a little teaser. Thank you so much, Debbie.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. You've been phenomenal. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye, y'all. Take care.